Hello, where from this is Jaden's videos, and the Graveyard Shift is out. That is right, Spirit Halloween has released the Graveyard Shift, and it is not what we expected. The whole thing about it being an actual movie was more of a publicity thing than an actual thing. Instead, the trailer is the actual thing, and the whole Graveyard Shift itself is basically just referring to the props, which is interesting, but I'm not complaining because this trailer is really cool. First off, it goes into showing a bunch of the props that they've actually released on the website today, and those ones are the more bigger advertised ones, which I will get into talking about each of those individually in this video. But then you have ones that kind of flash on the screen, and there's some really cool looking ones. There's like a floating ghost, there's a two-headed clown with a girl in an ice cream cone, there's one girl who moves her eyes to look to the side as a demon peeks out from behind her, which I really like. There's probably what's going to be one of my favorite props of the year. There's Baphomet, like literally Baphomet, like the demon Baphomet. So if you guys know me, I love demon props. So that's a big one for me. There's just a lot of really cool things. There's a bride holding a head. There's so many cool things that just flash on the screen that I'm really excited for them to release. Now, Flagship, I will say this, I am going to the Spirit Halloween Flagship location when it opens on the 31st, but that's what I want to say. Flagship opens in just about 2 weeks, so I'm really wondering when they're going to release these other ones, if it's going to be every day, or if we're going to get into a normal sneak peek schedule now that the Graveyard Shift is out, or if they're just going to release them all today, if they're going to release the rest today. I'm really confused and really curious about what's going to happen because we only had a few released on the site today, which were a part of the Graveyard Shift, which were the main focal points of the trailer. But we will find out what happens, and I'm just going to cover the ones that were released on the site today and talk about them, so let's get into it.
I just love hitting you bozos with my hammer. You better watch out, or I'm gonna whomp you over the head, too. Oh, please, come a little closer. Yeah. Bad Halloween costumes make me crazy. They make me wanna pummel things with my hammer, yes. I think I'm going crazy again.
So first things first, the one that needs no introduction, Wacky Mole is back. Now, we all saw this coming, but it's still super exciting to see the new Wacky Mole and to see that he has basically no changes besides the shoes and another few cosmetic changes than the original. I'm really happy about this because personally I wasn't very happy with the Uncle Charlie changes they made last year. I still thought he was a good prop, but I would have preferred if they kept him like the original. Now, Wacky Mole is exactly like the original basically, and that is a good thing. Am I going to get him? I don't know. I've always wanted Wacky Mole, but just based on this entire lineup we have so far this year, I don't know. It's going to be hard to say because this lineup has a lot of things that I'm really interested in getting. So I'm not sure yet. He's one that it's basically a maybe, but we'll wait and see. He has been raised in price to, I believe, $230, which I don't really see why. Obviously, just because prices go up over time, but still $230 seems like quite a bit considering Uncle Charlie, actually no, not $230, $220, my bad. But either way, it still seems like a little bit since Uncle Charlie only went up $10. Actually, no, never mind, because Uncle Charlie used to be a lot cheaper, so never mind. But still, it's kind of a lot, but I can kind of understand why, because, you know, prices do go up over time and stuff like that. He's still a cool prop, and I definitely like him, and I might consider getting him. Next up, we have Mr. Howe, which, believe it or not, this is not my favorite of the year. I know, it's shocking. He's a werewolf, you would have thought. I do really like him, though. He's definitely one that I might consider getting. I'm not sure yet. $300 is a pretty big price, but I really think with this guy, it depends on his size, because that's definitely what he's got going for him. If it wasn't for the big size, he would just be like any other werewolf. However, his size, it just looks so massive. His head looks huge, his hands look huge, his feet look huge. He looks like a gigantic prop. And so really, I think it depends on the size, whether I decide to get him or not. He's definitely on my radar and definitely one on my wish list because, I mean, he's a werewolf. Of course, I'm going to love him, and I do. My only issue is the lack of, I mean, he does have a lot of animation, but just he's not very unique, I wouldn't say. He's kind of just your basic werewolf, but he's still very cool just because of his size, and he just has a really cool appearance overall, which I really, really like. Next up, we have Grim.
You look like death warmed over, my friend. This is good. Soon there will be enough of us. And we will terrorize the living until we own this night. Are you with me? Tonight is ours!
This might be my favorite. I've not really decided on my favorite that we've seen so far yet. Now, what we've seen so far, I don't think is going to be my favorite of the year based on the little flashes on the screen we got of other things. It's going to be really hard to tell what my favorite of the year is going to be. But Grim is really cool. He might definitely be my favorite so far. He is a great one. His head moves up and down. It moves side to side. It's got a very fluent animation. He's got LCD eyes, which I love those. His hand moves up and down, and his waist moves side to side. It's extremely innovative. This prop reminds me a lot of basically a professional prop. He's very innovative, and not only that, but he's a classic Halloween skeleton. This is something I've wanted to see as a prop for a while. I mean, granted, we got the Home Depot 12-foot one last year, but I mean like a true to size, classic 6-foot Halloween skeleton, where nothing special about it, just a Halloween skeleton that talks and moves. And they delivered, and they gave us something really freaking cool with this guy, with all the animation and all the features that he has. He's just a really cool prop, and definitely one I'm gonna get. He's $280, which is pretty pricey, but considering what he does, I think he's well worth the price for sure. I could actually see him being even more expensive and it still being justifiable. Next.
There you are. I've been looking for you all night. I've come for you in regards to a serious matter. A very grave matter. Take a good look at my face. It will be the last thing you ever see. Right before I seal your coffin for your eternal slumber. Sweet dreams.
Next up, we have the Caretaker, which he's pretty cool. I like him, though I wouldn't say he's one that I'm going to get. And that might surprise you since my haunt theme for 2021 is a haunted mansion. There's no price on this guy yet, which is kind of weird. I would assume they're still updating the site with stuff because, I mean, this just dropped about a little over an hour ago. But he is pretty cool looking. I do like how he looks. I like how he has the tombstone on his back. My only issue is he's kind of basic compared to a lot of the other things this year. If this was a more weaker year, like consider 2018, for example, which I think was probably one of the worst spirit years. If this was a year like 2018, I could definitely see him sticking out. But in a year that just has so many unique and cool props, it's really hard to say that this guy's one of the best. Though he is cool, though, and I mean, it really depends on what I think of him in person, but right now, he's not on my radar of one to get.
Step right up and pick a card. It seems you've picked... the card of death! Time for a trick!
Remember this card. It'll be the last thing you'll ever see.
Next up, we have Henry Hustle. This is the big guy that everyone has been talking about and everyone's been hyping up about, and I think he's pretty cool. To be honest, he's not as good as I expected. I mean, I expected exactly what he is, but he's not as good as I expected. He's $230, which I'd say is a justifiable price for his animation, but he's not as good as I expected, and he's probably not one I'm going to get, especially because I want the Home Depot Jester. I mean, this guy might be one that I'm just going to have to not get. I do like him. I'm excited to see him in person. I like his voice. I think his voice is pretty cool. My only issue with him is that the second head, which is kind of like the main focal point of this prop, how his head pops up and reveals the other head, my only issue is it looks kind of plasticky and fake. It doesn't really have a lot of detail, and I would say that's my biggest issue with it. However, he is a cool prop. I do like him, just probably not what I'm going to get. I do really like the whole idea of him playing cards, though. I think that's a cool little feature. Next up, we have Night Stalker, which is probably my least favorite, believe it or not. Actually, no, he's probably not my least favorite, but he's one of my least favorites. This might shock you, because I'm big into farm props, and especially scarecrows and stuff. However, I don't really like this guy. And it shocks me, because originally when I saw his picture, I was like, oh, this guy's going to be awesome. Because I love the classic scarecrows that look like this. I mean, his face looks like a classic scarecrow. I love the scarecrows who are like hung on a cross, basically, in a cornfield. And that's what he is. However, he's not as good as I thought. I thought he was going to be, like, up, and he's going to kind of lunge forward, but he's not. His arms are actually still attached to the post while he isn't, which I think is kind of a clever concept, because it's supposed to be like he broke free and his arms ripped off of the cross, and he's kind of just standing there shaking. But I don't really like his audio, and I don't really like his animation too much. It's kind of slow, and it just doesn't do him justice. The more I look at him, the more he's growing on me because of the fact that he's a scarecrow. I'm kind of biased towards it, but I don't know. I'm going to have to wait to see this guy in person to decide. I think his price is pretty good. $180 is not a bad price for him at all, so it really just depends on what I think of him in person, but I've already got a ton of scarecrows, and this one just isn't one that sticks out to me too much, so I probably won't be getting him. Next up, we have probably my least favorite, and I know it's a lot of other people's least favorite. This is Ghostface, which is kind of upsetting that this is my least favorite, because I love Ghostface, I love the Scream movies, and I love the character of Ghostface, but I'm not a big fan of this prop. Now, it's not too upsetting, because if you do know, I do own the original, the OG, one of the greatest props ever made in a lot of people's opinions, the Jemmy 2011 Ghostface from Spirit. I do own that, and so I already have myself the best Ghostface prop that we've ever gotten. So this probably wouldn't be one that I would get anyways, unless it was really good and blew the Jemmy one out of the ballpark, but it doesn't. Now, I really like the idea of this one. I really like the whole jump scare thing. It definitely fits the character of Ghostface, having him have the hauntress animation of peeking out from around the corner. And I'm really happy that they're doing that hauntress animation again and reskinning it. I mentioned that last year that it would be great if they would reskin it for different characters, and it looks like they are, and that's honestly a good thing, because it is a great animation. I think it works well for Ghostface. My only issue is he just doesn't look that great. He looks kind of weird, to be honest. Just the way his proportions and everything, he doesn't look as stocky and big as Ghostface is supposed to be. However, he's all right, but he's definitely not what I'm going to get. It's mostly because I already own the original Ghostface. If I didn't own the original, I might consider this guy, but I mean, since I do, I'm not going to be getting him. He is $130, which I do think is a fair price, though I wish he was the price that Hauntress originally was, because that would actually be even better. Now we have Shorty from Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I just saw this film for the first time the other day, and I really liked it. Now, this prop, I don't know if I'm going to get, but I do really like the prop. I think it is pretty cool. I like the look of it. I like the animation. I love that you can choose whether you want the boxing gloves or not. I think it's a really cool touch. I think he's a cool prop, and he very much so stays true to the film. I like him a lot. Whether I get him or not, again, depends on how many other ones I like that we haven't even seen yet. There's just so many cool props this year, it looks like, that it's really hard to say with the few that we've seen so far what I'm going to get. But I do really like Shorty. I think he's a cool prop and definitely one I look forward to seeing and possibly purchasing.
Looks like you need a little trimming. A nip here, a tuck there. You'll be perfect in no time. Did you see that? I saw that. You need to be cut down to size. I've got a hammer, and I hammer in the evening all over this place.
Now we have Buzzsaw. Buzzsaw, not to be confused with the Buzzsaw from 2012, but this guy's cool. He's really big. He's got a very farm hillbilly type vibe. I love his voice. I love his phrases. He moves his mouth, and I don't really remember if he moves his head or not. I'm not watching the video right now. I don't really remember if he moves his head or body. But his saw blade for an arm, he's got a mount for an arm and a saw for an arm. His saw blade spins whenever the saw sound happens, which I think is really cool. My only problem with this guy is he's $280. I mean, sure, he does have a good amount of animation, and he looks extremely big, but $280 is pretty pricey for a prop like this. I don't know if I can justify this price. He might be one that I get, but I don't know. Probably not, because there's so many other cool ones that it looks like they're going to have that it's so hard to say right now. Because with the teaser, there's just so many cool looking ones, and I don't know which ones I want. However, this next one, which is the last one we're going to talk about today, until they release more, which I'm really wondering when they're going to release more, but this next one we're going to talk about is...
Woo! Thank you! That is why I won't do 2 shows a night anymore, babe. I won't do. Hey, these aren't my rules. Come to think of it, I don't have any rules. I'm feeling a little, anxious, if you know what I mean. Been about 600 years after all. I wonder where a guy, an everyday Joe like myself, can find a little action. Now, let's turn on the juice and see what shakes loose. So, say it once, say it twice, third time's a charm. Just say it. It's showtime.
Definitely what I'm going to get. I mean, without a doubt. $280, you can have yourself Beetlejuice, the ghost with the most. We saw this coming because last year they shipped out his price tag to some stores, mistakenly, I would assume, because he was made last year. He just wasn't released, but... here he is, he's finally released, and he's cool. Now, I was a teeny bit disappointed with him, just because the animation and everything's kind of odd. The way that he moves is just, it's kind of unnatural because of how he's in a sitting position, but he's still a cool prop for sure. I think... one thing is, if you can pose the arms, it could definitely look better, because I think one issue is he looks a little bit stiff. If you can pose the arms, it'll look better. I think having his arms, like, out to the side, like, with his palms up, like he's seen on the movie poster, I think would definitely look a lot cooler. But overall, he looks really cool. His face looks good. He's definitely the best Beetlejuice prop we've ever gotten. He has Michael Keaton's voice, which is good, and he's a good prop, which actually looks like Beetlejuice, and even though his animation isn't the best, Beetlejuice is one of my favorite films of all time, and definitely one of the best Halloween movies of all time, so this is absolutely one that I am going to purchase. I hope you all enjoyed this video covering the Graveyard Shift. It's not what we expected, but it's still very exciting that we got all these props released in one day. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're going to do next, when they're going to release the next props. It's kind of confusing because I'm not really sure what they're going to do, if they're just going to go with the sneak peek format or if we're going to see the rest later today or what they're going to do. But overall, really, really hyped for Spirit 2021. There's only like 2 weeks to go until Flagship opens, which like I said, I am going to be there, so I'm super excited to buy my first prop of the season at Flagship and everything and just see everyone and get to be at Flagship, see all the props. Really excited. I can't believe the Halloween season is just about here. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and let me know what you think of all these props in the comments below. Keep howling at the moon, my werewolves.